lovely people, welcome back to my channel. I'm Aunty Bubu from Style by Binta, and today in this video tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to recreate this beautiful shift dress with a cut together side pocket, and it's also going to be having zip at the back. So if you are coming across my video for the first time and you are interested in content like this, I'd like you to please like this video, subscribe to my channel, turn on your notification button so as for you to get notified once I upload new videos. And to all my returning subscribers, I want to say a very big thank you to you. I love you guys. So the first thing I did was to fold my fabric in 4 folds, and this is what I have. So at the edge also, which is the center front and the center back, I measured 1 inches and I folded it and I gave it a good press, which is going to be for spacing for the slit at the front, and for the back is going to be for the zipper allowance. If you work with much allowance for your zip, you can make the back 1.5 inches, but for me, I'm okay with this 1 inch. So the next thing I did was to place the tape on this shoulder line, which is also the startup line, and I imputed the bust point length there. And in this case, I'm working with 11 inches. For the under bust, I make a point at 17 inches. So for the hip, in this case the hip is 27, so I make a point there. And for the full length, which is also the hemline, I'm going to be making a point at 39 inches, so I added 1 inch allowance to it. The next thing I did was to rule a line across this point. Then I went ahead and then labeled the lines. I have the bust point, the waistline, the hip line, and the full length of the dress. So the next thing I did was to work on the shoulder line. So I'm going to be imputing the shoulder to shoulder measurements divided by 2. So in this case, I'm working with 16 inches for the shoulder to shoulder measurement. Then I'm going to be dividing it by 2, which will give 8. So I'm going to be making a point on the 8 inches. So I'm going to be adding the sleeve measurement. So I'm going to be adding 6 inches to it. So I went ahead and I make a point there. Then I added 1 inch extra for fold allowance. So this is what I have. From this line, I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch, which is for the shoulder slant. So the next thing I did was to come to the center front and also the center back in this case. So I'm going to be coming in from the shoulder line by 3 inches for the width of the neckline. So I went ahead and I measured 3 inches and I make a point there. So I'm going to be connecting this point to the 1 inches I came down with earlier. So the next thing I did was to measure the depth of my neckline. So for the back, I'm working with the depth of 1.5 inches. So I went ahead and I marked it. Then I make a curve, just as you can see, connecting it to the 3 inches, which is the width of the neckline. And this is for the back neckline. So for the front neckline, I came down by 7 inches and I make a point at the center, just as you can see. Then I'm going to be connecting line to the 3 inches that I had already marked, just as you can see. So this is the V neckline that is going to be at the front. So for the sleeve opening, I'm simply going to be coming down by 8 inches, starting from the second line, which is the 1 inch which I came down with earlier to form the shoulder slant. So I'm going to be coming down by 8 inches. So I went ahead and I make a point there. So the next thing I did was to replace whatever I have at the shoulder line on this 8 inches that I came down with, which is the sleeve opening. So I make a point there also. So the next thing I did was to come in by 1 inch from the point and I make a point there also, which is to differentiate the fold allowance at the sleeve side, just as you can see. So the next thing I did was to rule a straight line across the points, just as you can see. So the next thing I did was to add half-inch seam allowance to the shoulder part. So I went ahead and I added half-inch at the neckline and at the sleeve side. Then I connected the points together. So this is what I have. So the next thing I did was to input the circumference. So I came to the bust point. I am going to be inputting the bust circumference on this line. So I went ahead and I divided the bust point by 4 inches. Then I added 1 inch ease allowance, then another 1 inch for seam allowance. So in this case, I'm working with the bust of 37 inches divided by 4 gave 9¼ of an inch. 1 inch is an allowance, then 1 inch seam allowance. And this is what I have. So I came to the waist part too. In this case, I'm working with the waist of 32 inches. I divided by 4 also. Then I added 1 inch heels allowance, then 1 inch seam allowance to it. So 32 divided by 4 give 8 inches. I added 1 inch ease allowance, then 1 inch seam allowance. This is what I have. I did the same for the hip. Hip divided by 4 plus 1 inch ease allowance, then 1 inch seam allowance. So this is what I have. So at this hem line, you can just repeat what you have at the hip down there if you are looking for a straight look at this part. But because there's going to be a slit at the front and also there's going to be a zipper at the back, I went ahead and I reduced the hip measurement by 1 inch. Then I placed it on this hem line. Then I added 1 inch ease allowance, then another 1 inch seam allowance to it to give it a more shaped look other than part. This is absolutely optional. So the next thing I did was to connect the points together, starting from the sleeve to the bust point to the waistline to the hip line, then to the hem line, just as you can see. And this is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to trace out my pocket, because I'm going to be working with a cut together pocket. I don't want to use a separate pocket. It is much easier to cut the pocket together than to start joining it after making the dress. So the next thing I did was to come to the waistline and I came down by 7 inches. So this is what I have. I make a point there. The next thing I did was to extend the line downwards, just as you can see. So I make a point at 6 inches. So all you have to do is to try and make a pocket like shape. So the next thing I did was to come back to the waistline and I'm going to extend my lines downwards, just as you can see. Just try and create an extension that looks like a pocket at this side. So it's pretty much easy. So this is what I have. So if I measure it straight to my waistline, I'm going to be having 12 inches, but if I measure it from the down part out, I'm going to be having 6 inches. So this depth is okay for a pocket. So this is what I'm going to be working with. So the next thing I did was to cut the pattern out, starting from the back pattern. So I'm going to be following the back neckline. So the next thing I did was to cut beyond the line marked out at the sleeve part, so as for me to have excess. Then I went ahead and I fold up this fold allowance. Then I went ahead and I traced the line. This is just to prevent shortage of fabric while stitching. So the next thing I did was to cut out the pocket side as well, just as I had marked it on the fabric itself, just as you can see. So I went ahead and I cut it out. So this is what I have. So the next thing I did was to remove 2 pieces from this folded fabric, and the 2 pieces I remove is going to be for the back. So I'm left with 2 pieces again, which is going to be for the front. So I went ahead and I remarked the neck depth of 7 inches on this fabric. Then I went ahead and I cut it out. So the next thing I did was to cut the bias that I'm going to be using to pipe the neckline, that I'm going to be using to turn the neckline or to finish the neckline. So I'm working with the width of 1.5 inches for the bias, and I'm making use of the fabric itself. You can as well use your ready-made bias. So this is what I have. So the next thing I did was to fold it by 1/2 inch at both sides. Then I'm going to be folding it over again. Then I'm going to be giving it a good press. This is the easiest way to get your bias tape done. Like I said, if you have your ready-made bias, you can work with it. So this is what I have after giving it a good press. So this is what I'm going to be working with. So the next thing I did was to cut out this little piece that is at the fold at the front. So after cutting it out, I went ahead and I placed the bias on the neckline, right side facing right side. So I'm going to be stitching it straight down, just as you can see. So this is what I have. Then I went ahead to notch it, and this is what I have. So I went ahead and I fold it twice. So this is how it looks. Then I'm going to be stitching at the edge. So this is what I have. I'm going to be doing the same thing for the others of the front piece. The next thing I did was to determine the slit opening. So I'm working with the length of 6 inches for the slit opening at the front. So I went ahead and I make a point there. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to stitch straight down, following the line that has been created from ironing. So this is what I have after stitching it down. I had already weaved the edges so as for it to be neat. This is not compulsory. So the next thing I did was to put Emi gum in between and I gave it a good press. So this is the results that I have after giving it a good press. So as you can see, the inside part is looking as neat as this, creating a sort of V shape at the neckline, just as you can see, and that is how the slit looks. So the next thing I did was to follow the same process for the back neckline. So I went ahead and I used the bias to turn the neckline just as I did for the front neckline. So the next thing I did was to place the zip that I'm going to be working with on it, and I'm at 2 inches upwards. Then I make a point there. So I'm going to be starting my stitch from that point down. I went ahead and I stitch it straight down. So this is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to fix the zip itself to the space left out. So I'm going to proceed with that. So I went ahead and I fixed the zip in an invisible way. So it's only the teeth of the zip that is being seen. So the next thing I did was to raw edge of the zipper cloth inside, just as you can see. See, I went ahead and I top stitched that. So the next thing I did was to run another stitch at the edge of this zipper cloth, just as you can see, because this is the number one reason why the zip gets spoiled easily. So I went ahead and I run another stitch at the edge, just as shown. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to place the velvet bias on this front piece, just as you can see. So I'm going to be tracing the neckline, then at this V part I'm going to ensure that it's aligned well. So at the other edge is going to be bulging out a bit, like by a quarter of an inch. So you will have to do a sort of little pleat because that V part is creating a sharp turning, so you have to make a little pleat, and I'm going to be stitching it down on both sides. So this is what I have, and as you can see, it is neatly done. The little pleat is not going to be obvious at all. So the next thing I did was to lay the back piece on the front piece, right side facing right side. So the next thing I did was to stitch the shoulder down at both sides, and this is what I have. Then I weave it out. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to stitch the sides, following the pocket as well. I went ahead and I stitched the sides down. So this is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to fold the sleeve by half of an inch, then by another half of an inch. Then I'm going to be stitching it round. So I'm going to be following the same procedure for the other sleeve. So the next thing I'm going to be doing, which is pretty much the last thing, is to hem the down part. So the next thing I did was to make a slit at that pocket side so as to make it more relaxed. Ensure that you don't cut through your stitch. So this is what I have. As you can see, the pocket is laying relaxed, is not rough at that side, and this is the full dress. So if you have gained anything from this video at all, I'd like you to like this video, subscribe to this channel, turn on your notification button so as for you to get notified when I upload new videos. Thank you so much for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.